the different kinds of metrics that BriefCatch is looking for are reader engagement, whether the brief is concise and readable, whether it's flowing and cohesive, whether it's crisp and punchy, and whether it's clear and direct. And since I installed the software, Ross, I've been madly running, all of my past briefs through it to see how I stack up on those. And most of them, are fairly consistent. I think one that I noticed bounces around quite a bit is on flowing and cohesive for me. And on one brief, I think I hit 100, and on others, I'm down in like the 60s. And what it made me think about something Tocqueville had said about writing, and that writing is an act of discovery. And sometimes, particularly if you're the appellant and you're still kind of feeling your way around the arguments, how do I get from this point to that point? And you're just kind of writing, and you might get there, but it might not always be a straight line. And so that might make me pay on the flowing and cohesive score. So that's where really, if I had endless amounts of time and hours to put into it, I could make that road a little bit straighter. But I wonder if you have any tips for me and our audience about how to, maybe best ways to make a brief more flowing and cohesive.
Sure. So just one quick note is, I think this is novel, that the scores are based on empirical evidence. In other words, I didn't just make up what I think matters. I actually took a huge universe of briefs and opinions and other legal documents written by superstars, and everything that goes into those 5 scores is somehow related to whatever I've seen through AI is more or less common in that lofty group. So that's how the scores are derived. So for flowing and cohesive, 3 things. And you don't want to take the scores too seriously, of course, but these are 3 things that seem to matter, again, if you look at the top-notch writer's work. So one is having a lot of transitions that have logical value. So in other words, not furthermore, not additionally, not moreover. Those are just, I'm going to keep talking, I'm going to keep writing transition words. But ones like even so, or that said, or from that perspective, or in fact, anything that shows that you're trying to think through the law or sometimes even the facts. So that's going to up the score, because that's something you'll notice in a lot of the great legal and judicial writers' work. So that's the first. So the second is different types of numbering, right? So again, going back to the furthermore, further, additionally habit, it's not that you necessarily get a higher or lower score if you have first, second, third, but anything that looks like you're trying to present 2, 3, 4, 5 things in parallel form that's easy to follow, and not just stringing them together with furthermore. And then the third is, again, this is all empirical. It's, started in my books that I noticed these things. So it's a sign that you're trying to make your sentences and paragraphs flowing by linking the end of one sentence or paragraph to the beginning of the next. So if you have, if you're talking about a statute and then the next sentence starts with the administrative agency that's, subject to the statute, and at the very end of the next sentence, you then finally mention, oh, I'm still talking about the statute, that's not going to get as many points as that statute, past 5 years ago, has been applied by this court 7 times. Anything that links 2 sentences, links 2 paragraphs is going to up that score, because again, that's something much more common in a lot of the best writers' work.
All right. And you say don't take the scores too seriously. I have a crack associate.
People do take them seriously, though.
Yeah. I've got a crack associate in my firm. I run his briefs through there. They're consistently in the 90s. Okay, he's a superstar. Maybe as a supervising attorney or as a law firm, what should we do with those scores if we're not to take them seriously? What do you recommend?
Well, I'm saying, it's like the disclaimer, like don't use this, don't use this jackknife, when you're drunk. It's that kind of thing. I mean, of course, I'm going to say don't take them seriously. Of course, people are going to take them seriously. Doesn't matter what I say. A lot of famous people write me to appeal their scores as if they really matter, which is pretty funny. So in an ideal world, the point of the scores would be self-improvement, right? So if you would just be trying overall without overly fixating to get them higher and higher. Another thing that I think people miss is instead of thinking about the scores and how high they are, maybe try to figure out why you have a high score and try to make it something you can remember and do again, right? So there's a lot of people think if you just read great writing, you'll become a great writer. If it were that easy, we'd have a profession of fantastic writers. I mean, they could just read, a Scalia dissent every day and they'd all write like Justice Scalia or Justice Kagan. So what really matters is not reading great writing. Again, that would make it too easy. It's really understanding the nuts and bolts and being able to replicate them. So there's something to that too. Sometimes our profession focuses too much on criticizing and correcting, not nearly enough on identifying what's really successful and giving people tools to replicate it.